Next on our agenda is the city manager's report.
So, Mayor and Council, I know that 12 o'clock we have the public comment. I actually have 4 items, 2 of which are printed on the agenda to talk about the drought contingency plan as well as the storm debris update. I do believe this will take us over 12 o'clock. Are we still okay?
That's fine.
Okay. So having mentioned the fact that the drought contingency plan, we really would like for staff to come forward to talk about that, after which will be the storm debris update. And I have a couple of other items that I would like to share after we would have talked about those 2 items. So the drought contingency, Mark Van Vleck, Assistant City Manager.
Again, Mark Van Vleck, Assistant City Manager. Good news on one respect, okay, and then there's some additional following that. Lake Corpus Christi is full, as highlighted in the yellow, as you can see on the screen, okay. Our current combined capacity is 51.4%, which you can see highlighted in the green, okay. The key here is we will remain in stage 1 of the drought contingency plan, okay, until we have a combined capacity above 60% for at least 15 consecutive days. The reason we have put that in the ordinance is so that you don't bounce back and forth between stages in a couple of months, okay? So we remain in stage 1. The only way that, as you can see, that we will get out of stage 1 is that we need some flows into Choke Canyon, right? Our pass-through targets have been met through a combination of flows over the saltwater barrier in Calallen and the Rincon Bayou Pump Station, which is shown here at the bottom, and we have a surplus of 11,000 due to there are still flows coming into the Lake Corpus Christi. The November pass-through target is 4,000 acre feet. We will be able to essentially apply 2,000 of this towards that. You're allowed to take any surplus for this month towards half of next month's requirements if there's inflows. So that will occur, okay? And we currently have 2 gates open at Lake Corpus Christi. We're still seeing flows come down the river. We're expecting those gates to have to remain open for a couple more days, which will mean additional flooding downstream. Probably between another 4 and 5 days, we'll have flooding downstream along the river, okay? Additionally to that, because we are full, any flows coming down the Nueces River, our flexibility is very minimal. So if we have heavy flows coming into Lake Corpus Christi in the next few months, we're going to have to almost pass those through or spill those directly. So the flooding downstream could be much more severe. We were able to manage, I realize there's concerns about it this time, but we were able to manage it so it didn't happen in a couple days. It was actually spread out over several days. But as rains come in over the next few months, there's really nowhere to be able to capture them and then filter it through. It's going to essentially, as it comes through, it's going to have to go out. And I stand by for any questions.
I've got a question, and several people have asked, and I need some clarification. For all the additional water that we've spilled out, you're saying we only get 50% credit for the following month?
We get entire credit for this month, and then we can apply 50% of it towards the requirements for the following month.
And then what about the months after that?
That it wouldn't apply unless there's, again, surpluses for each of those months.
Well, and maybe now's not the time for discussion, but I really believe that the time has come that we discuss this in terms of getting some adjustments on this. It just is absolutely, in my mind, not acceptable. And of course, this has been a burn my bonnet for years. For the amount of water that we are releasing into the bays, and then to only get 1, maybe 2 months credit for the total volume of water. In my mind, that's just, we've met the need. To my knowledge, to this date, there's no historical scientific data that all these freshwater releases are generating the results that they were intended to do. And if you look at the most saline bay that we have in Corpus Christi, it's the Laguna Madre, and the biggest fish we catch is in the Laguna Madre. These fish are adaptable. The little critters are adaptable. They're not any smarter in Nueces Bay, or not any smarter in the Laguna Madre than they are in Nueces Bay. So I don't know that this is the proper time to be talking about it, but I'd like to have a full discussion on this, because I think the citizens in this community have paid an extraordinary price to meet some fantasy guidelines, and I think it's time to stop. Ms. Vaughn.
Mr. Van Vleck, I got an email from a gentleman, and I promised that I would ask this question if we were given an update on this. He says, has any thought ever been given to installing a pumping system at Three Rivers with a short pipeline to allow some of this water to be pumped from the Nueces River into Choke Canyon?
Yes.
It has, some thought has been given?
And we've done the calculations. It's in a report as part of the Region N water planning process.
And
it didn't pan out. It was not feasible as a feasible alternative. The key here is the size of pumps and the frequency you would have to do in order to actually make a difference. Mm-hmm. Okay, they're extremely expensive, and the number of times that you'd actually be able to use them is minimal. And so when we ran through that scenario, it wasn't really a feasible project.
it's just a shame we waste all this water, isn't it? And not all of it's wasted, but it is. It's just a shame. But I want to thank you for his comment.
I wasn't here when we built Choke Canyon, so I'm not taking the blame for that one.
It must have been a political decision, because it was certainly built in the wrong place. Thank you.
Yes,
Well,
ma'am.
I was, and I can tell you a whole lot about it.
Yes, sir, I've heard a lot too, but I want to say it's not my decision.
Yeah, but it really bothers a lot of people in this community. And
Yes, sir.
I said then, and I said now, the water, you know, we're all pretty smart, and I'm sure everybody's got a lot of education other than me, but I don't know that we're any smarter than God, and that's where the river came. And we're releasing water to go into a man-made estuary, because that's just the way the system works. And so you get some old timers around here, you can walk across the bed of the Nueces River at times because there's no flow. So what do you do when there's no water to release? If that dam wasn't there and there's no flow in the river, the fish adapt, and they've done it since the book of Genesis. So why do they think we're so smart in Corpus Christi that we've got to redo the system? So I really would like to have another discussion on this and check out all the alternatives as to what we're doing. And the other thing on our drought relief program, I don't know that I really, until you showed it on that, when we made our modifications to the drought management plan, and maybe I just made an assumption or just it didn't ring a bell with me. I mean, we're still managing the water as if we've only got Lake Corpus Christi and Choke Canyon. And we've got Texana, and we have spent a ton of money on that. So when we say we've got to get the lakes up to 60, combined reservoir system up to 60%, which we know there's very little flow in the Frio River from the day they started that dam, I think we need to take a look at the possibility of looking at the combined system, including Lake Texana, because that's our water supply. But we're managing like Lake Corpus Christi and Choke Canyon are our only water supply.
We did make that adjustment to the contingency plan, but we can review again on whether it should be the 50% or a different number. But the key here is we went back to essentially the previous contingency plan before the changes in 2015. But we did actually add triggers related to Lake Texana associated with if it's above certain amounts. But we can look at that again.
In other words, I mean, a 60% combined capacity of Choke Canyon, Lake Corpus Christi, and Lake Texana would be the equivalent of probably 3 Lake Corpus Christis. I don't know the numbers, but I just think it's a mathematical deal we need to look at. Because getting it back up to 60%, I mean, we may never get back out of it again unless we have the rain happen to fall in the Frio River.
And the key is that we're in stage 1, which is voluntary conservation.
Well,
There's
I
no
understand,
mandatory.
but the psychological thing and
Understand.
the principle, but anyway, all right. Anybody else have any
Mayor.
questions? Ms. Opal?
Mr. Van Vleck, I know that in the past, the efforts were made to create more of a, to the mayor's point, there was more of a water index, trying to, because we don't, the drought contingency plan does not accurately reflect the available water that we have in Corpus Christi. Is that correct?
It mainly reflects on the reservoirs. What happens is that essentially the time between the stages is extended due to Lake Texana. In other words, if it hadn't come from Lake Texana, the water would have to be coming out of the lakes, so they would drain faster. So what has happened is your time between the percentages has dramatically increased due to, so they're shown, they're reflected in the actual results, but they're not shown in a calculation.
And the point being, I've always found it interesting that the folks who report on when it rains and how much it rains, the meteorologists here in the community, at least one of them, tends to focus a lot on just the 2 surface water lakes. And that really does have the potential to skew the facts that this council and previous councils have recognized and take action and have developed a very robust water supply that actually is in how many watersheds? 4?
We are now in 4.
4 different watersheds. So, and one of them happens to be near Houston, which we all know they got lucky this year and are less than lucky. They tend to get more rain. So I don't know how we communicate that, because people look at the drought contingency plan and they tie that to available water. And that no longer is the case. For years, that was the case. But the level that we are in drought does not reflect our availability of water. It just reflects that we have a commitment to the state to work on conservation when certain triggers are hit.
That's correct.
So there's a huge communication opportunity here. Not sure how we fix it, but we need to find a new way to talk about it. And so I would encourage you to go back to look at that water index, that we might be able to talk about. We may be doing drought contingency, but we have really good, robust water availability right now. So
We will look at it again. What the problem was is most residents, as well as those who've been here a long time, it's very hard to change what they're looking at.
We're not going to change them. We have to teach them something new.
So we've attempted that, and we can try it again.
All right. Ms. Rubio?
Mr. Van Vleck, when you open the gates, do you allow the citizens that live downstream enough time to gather their property belongings? How much time do y'all give them?
Before we open it, we tell them we're going to be opening it, and we have a reverse alert. And I think everyone along there is actually registered, or we try to ensure everyone along there is registered, and we let them know. The other key part to remember is it takes almost a full day from the time it leaves Lake Corpus Christi before it gets to the Cal Allen area. So even when we open the gates, you're not going to see it down in the areas that are flooding now for about 24 hours. Okay.
But how soon do you let them know the reverse alert?
I think it's the day before we're releasing.
Just one day?
Well, it's situational, because last time we started releasing earlier, and then we didn't fill completely because the volume that we projected coming in didn't all come in.
Okay.
And so we're constantly balancing, is this information really rock solid? No, it's water. And so this time we adjusted so that we ensured that we were full at the end of it, rather than 3 or 4 inches less than full.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, because
So
I heard some concerns from some of the citizens that live downstream, and so I was just curious how many days that they got notice. But now I understand the dynamics of the whole thing.
We give them as much notice as we can.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I don't see anything. One other question, and then I'll get off of this. I hope I was right, but I somehow have this eerie feeling that I was wrong. Someone asked me, they said the water that is being pumped as part of our release requirements into the river to go down the Rincon Bayou I was under the impression that we were pumping wastewater to meet a part of our release requirements. And and I argued that point at a public forum. I said, no, it's not fresh river water, it's wastewater, that's part of our deal. We were originally going to get 3-to-1 in terms of our releases because there was so much rich nutrients in the wastewater that the little critters could just really just get fat overnight because of enrichment. And then the surveys showed that, and the test showed that there wasn't any more value to that water than there was regular water. So we bought a pig in a poke on that theory. But now was under the impression that the pump was still pumping wastewater just so we could get the 1-to-1, and they tell me, no, that changed a few years ago, that now it's just river water, fresh water, that we're pumping into the Rincon Bayou for our release requirements. Is that correct?
We, as part of the 2001 agreed order, were required to build and I'm trying to find where it is, construct a facility capable of delivering up to 3,000 acre-feet per month from the Cal Allen Pool into the upper Rincon Bayou, and that's the Rincon pump station, and it is pumping river water over to the Rincon Bayou.
Which is a man-made estuary because somebody thought the little critters needed something, and in days without the river flooding, there's no water back there, so there's no critters back there except what we're putting on there. This whole argument needs to be re-looked at, and I think maybe it's time we just stick a fork in the ground and say we're not doing much of this anymore. But that's something to be determined later. But the public, I think, has had a belly full of all of this, so I'd like to have this come back and just be prepared for a long discussion.
Okay, and we would probably have
That
to
happens.
invite our co-permittees, because we're not the only ones that have this
And tell them
permit.
to bring their volumes of scientific data that proves that what we're doing, we're accomplishing what we're doing. I can produce a tape where I've got the Parks and Wildlife guy, or not TCQ at the time, what was the name of that group back then? TNRCC, that said their survey data before the releases and after the releases showed no difference. And I've got that on tape. I'm afraid over the years, though, it's probably been melted together and I can't get it. But I'm going to dedicate myself to getting that off of that VHS tape and bring it here.
Yes, sir.
So, all right. Next item is, Rose, you got any more interesting things on your city council manager's report?
Yes, I do.
All right.
Okay.
Go.
The next item is regarding the storm debris removal update. We think it's time to share with you as well as the public an update in that regard. Lawrence, please.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Lawrence Mikulowski, Director of the City Solid Waste Operations. I'm going to update you today on where we are with our debris collection. First of all, I want to start out with our multi-hazard debris management plan. This plan was, we created this plan in the year 2014, and it was approved by FEMA in January of 2015. This is our debris management plan that provides key information that will help the city coordinate and manage a debris removal effort if the city is affected by a major debris generating event. The following elements are addressed in this plan, and you'll see the elements in the bullets there. Our debris recovery contractor is Crowder Gulf. They're based out of Georgia, and we started on August the 31st, the 6th day after the storm made landfall. The first push through the city, we're picking up only just the clean brush. We're not picking up any other fencing or material or any furnitures. And the original estimate, we projected we had 275,000 cubic yards. Since then, we are going to renew that estimate to FEMA at 395,000 yards. On this next slide here, we're going to talk a little bit about Tetra Tech. They're the monitor. They're our contractor that monitors the contractor. In our debris management plan, we monitor what the brush hauler collects because we have to have very accurate data that we submit to FEMA. Tetra Tech is contracted to document all that information and provide it in a form that is ready to upload into the new FEMA portal that we're having the first experience with using during this storm. This next slide here shows our debris management site. which in our plan we had pre-located 3 debris management sites. One of them was at the J.C. Elliott Transfer Station, and a vacant property we had there that you can see off the Crosstown Extension. We're also at our old Westside landfill, which is located behind the Veteran Cemetery, and then also the Cephei Valenzuela landfill. At the particular site here, this is where all the clean wood waste goes, and then it is ground, and then we'll eventually haul it to the Cephei Valenzuela for further use. In this slide here, this shows you where the red stars are. We have a few areas that we're still working on in there. The goal is to be done by Sunday, so we can start over on Monday with our final pass. And as of Sunday, 10/15, we've collected a total of 332,988 yards we've hauled, and it equals to 6,289 truckloads. And to put that into perspective of what we do, this is in 46 days they've hauled what we would do in a year and a half. So this next slide here shows the challenges that we have out there yet. And then our second and final sweep of the collections, we will collect everything as we go through. It'll be a clean sweep. There will be a lot of solid waste operations out there as well. We'll have our own employees out there monitoring the contractor, because we want this to be a very clean last final sweep. And then on our last slide here, this is the map, and that in the column on the left, we're going to start out on Area 1A, out on the island, and then we will proceed through the city as you see on our brush schedule that is posted on our website. We'll start out on October the 23rd, and where our goal is to be done with our contractor by the new year, and then we still have our last 2 areas, areas 9 and 10, which were not impacted as much as some of the other areas, and the city crews were able to go through there and do the first and second sweep before to complete those 2 areas there. And just to give you a little bit of information on Hurricane Harvey, Hurricane Harvey generated 30 million cubic yards of debris in Texas. So far in 54 days in the state, there's been 7,627,419 yards collected, and our goal, we're going to have 395,000 in that number. Any questions?
Anybody have any questions, Ms. Vaughn?
Did you say that you had done the final sweep? Have you not completed the final sweep yet?
No, ma'am. We're starting Monday on the final sweep.
Okay, because there are some areas that have not been covered, and I know you've got my email. One of them is Hillcrest, in the area all the way to Oville Williams, all down 37. If you go down Staples here, you look side to side, you see it all sitting out. Those areas have never been touched, correct?
Those areas are on our list for this week.
Okay.
Those are some of the final areas.
Okay. How did you determine where you started?
We started city crews on the island, and then we proceeded into the city. We started contractors in the Flower Bluff area where was the largest amount of debris, and then in the main part of the city, we started out in a little bit west of the airline road, and then we just worked systematically.
Okay, it's just been a real concern to me, because what it looks like to me, and I'm just saying this, is I don't care if you pay taxes, $10 or $10,000. We're all equal as far as picking up and cleaning up the city. And it looks to me like some of the lower income areas are put at the last, and I think that is unfair. And it's not just my areas. I know Ms. Lucy Rubio can say the same thing about hers. And that's a concern, and I hope that's not what happened, but that is what it looks like to me from looking at what hasn't been picked up. Thank you.
Mr. Molina?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm hearing out in public that, well, you're already talking about a second and final sweep, and there's some areas, from what I'm being told, that the first sweep hasn't even occurred. So can you address why we're already talking about a second and final sweep if some areas haven't even had a first sweep?
With our Tetra Tech contractor, we can monitor the progress through the city through a mapping system that we have, and although it's not 100%, and the contractor has we do have some situations where they have missed some streets, and we do have some areas that we have left in on the south side, on the Oso Bay, Oso corridor there, between Staples and on into the lakes, and then we also we have the area that's left over in the Hillcrest and along Interstate 37 there that we're working on. But there's going to be some isolated areas that we will go back and address once we know where they're at.
Okay, so you're going to address these areas that haven't been swept yet after the second and final sweep of the areas that you've already started on?
If we learn about them before then, we will address them before then.
And what's a good contact number to call for those residents that still haven't had the sweep done?
826 City.
Okay, and they should ask for solid waste?
They need to report their address and the situation, and then the work order will be generated and it'll come to us.
Okay, and then my second question is, there's some areas where half the street has been addressed, and then the rest is not being addressed. So why is half the street being done, and the rest of the street is being left with the debris and all the brush?
Well, I'd have to go and look at that and see if this is, remember, this is a clean brush pickup. The first is the clean brush. So if they have anything in there that would prohibit that, then that could be why that may be a portion of a street that was left. It could have bags of leaves in it. It could have bags of sheetrock. It could have any of that kind of material in it, and the contractor would have just bypassed it, knowing that it would be picked up the second time.
Does the resident get notified that the truck passed them by?
We notify everybody that best we can through the different our different PSAs, and we ask everybody to early on to separate their brush.
Okay, and what do you do in the event that there's brush and debris on the yard, and there's a vehicle parked to where the brush truck can't get to the debris?
The contractor brings that information back to us, then we will send one of our compliance officers to go back and make contact and ask them to move their vehicles out of the way.
Okay, so if the vehicle is parked while the brush pickup is being performed, then the brush truck will bypass that?
Yes, it will.
That resident. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Garza?
Thank you, Mayor. Let me just say that I appreciate all the efforts that you're making. I know that I've been in contact and sent a lot of emails on people that have contacted me via Facebook or email, whether it's my area or not. So again, I've got family members all over town. Some live in Central and Lucy or Ben's district, and some live in Carolyn's district. My street in my subdivision, Woolridge Creek 2, has not been picked up. It's just off of Woolridge and Fulton, and so it's on the south side, but it's been picked up. I got several comments. Village at the Lakes. I drove by Country Club, Woolridge, right in that area. I still saw debris in there. So there's some areas in the south side that haven't been picked up. I mean, I've been trying to communicate the information as best we could. And I see some that have fencing debris piled up, and I don't expect those that they're going to be picked up until we do the final sweep or pick up all the debris.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, 6 weeks. I mean, we've been patient as we can, but it is getting to a point where I see high grass all around those piles, and I know you guys are doing the best you can, but there are some areas, particularly right in that area where I live, 3B, that area got skipped, and I'm hoping that I was hoping maybe we'd get it by Sunday, but debris was still out there.
We're still out there.
And it's all brush, so I know it hadn't been picked up even in the first pass. So
Okay.
but thanks for your hard work, and we look forward to getting everything picked up best we can. Thanks.
Thank you.
Ms. Guajardo?
Thank you. Lawrence, you said this week is the final first sweep
Yes.
for all the areas? Right.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, by the end of this week?
By Sunday, we anticipate we have all of it that we can get up.
Okay. So that said, Mrs. Rose, I know this is on the website, but I know my parents certainly don't go to a website much. I think we need to get out on the TV and the news media and let people know exactly what it is you're giving us, this information. Because I think all of us up here receive emails from all parts of town. And it isn't just, lower end, District 5. I mean, Sunday at church, I had 3 people come up to me. And I understand, and I think I addressed it with Mr. Van Vleck. I understand there, it didn't, some things were just left behind. There are several different reasons as to why. But opposed to all of us relaying all this information, which is not a problem, we need to be upfront and get this exact information out to the media so that people can understand and see that map right there with those dates. And that said, if you can send us this little PowerPoint, I'd appreciate it.
Okay, and
Thank
we
you.
are planning to do just what you
Great.
mentioned.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Opal?
Could you share with me how many households you're responsible for managing through our solid waste department?
88,000.
88,000 across. Do you know how many miles of streets you guys travel in a year?
If we travel it once a week, it's like 1,800 miles.
So you're making it a pretty good trip here around the city every week, and what you've done with the support of the contractor and the time that it takes to do that. One of the things, I guess one of the first press conferences post-storm that Brock Long, the head of FEMA, shared with us is we have to manage expectations. And there can't be anything more frustrating than folks who do not have an ability to take that brush. I mean, there's nothing that prevents me from taking that brush to you at a landfill if I have the means to do that. So those who do have the means, if they're ready for it to move, they can do it themselves. But for those who don't, that's kind of why we're here. So I look at this timeline, and I know that it's showing through 2018, January, kind of the middle of January 2018. And so to manage expectations, I don't think those phone calls are going to stop on round 2 as well. So I'm just wanting to compliment the team. I'm not sure how many hours of overtime. I know initially there was a lot. So we just really appreciate what the staff has done to try to manage this situation. We feel like that we're sort of post-storm and, wow, it's not done yet, and we get it. And I just want to compliment the team and share that we appreciate the effort and the creativity, because this is not easy. This is not, you can plan for it, but to actually execute it can be a real struggle. So we do, I think, need to enhance that communication cadence in whatever way that we can. The media, it's real interesting. I was out of town in actually Florida this week, and there's this feeling that with all the disasters going on, the ones that have occurred have sort of, moved off the news cycle. So anything that you can do to try to get it back up and let our folks know, I think Ms. Guajardo's absolutely correct, that we've got to be a little bit more effective in banging that gong, because it's important. And I'm so glad to hear that after the last sweep, our city will be looking really good. So thank you.
That's our goal.
Mr. Garza?
I didn't get a chance to, but I want to give a special shout out to Paul Bass, your assistant director. He's done a great job in responding to my email. So thank you for his hard work. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I don't see how the lights it up. Want to double check, you said 826 city. For those of us that dial by number and not letter, that's 826-2489, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. The other thing, in talking about expectations, I think we as a city have generated the reason for a lot of the complaints. And the reason for those complaints are the press releases that are going out are not clear. When we're finishing our first sweep and everybody looks up and down their street and they've just got trash from one end to the other, they're thinking, my gosh, those people aren't even in reality. So I would recommend that we send no more press releases out saying where we are in terms of our last sweep. We're going to be finished by Sunday. We're going to be finished by Saturday. That's unreasonable expectations, getting back to this. If you want to provide information, tell them the trucks are going to be in Zone 9 this week, or they're going to be in Zone 1B this week. But we have created this image that we're just about through, and everybody's saying, wait a minute, they're through and they've forgotten us. And it's all over town. It's not just Annabelle or Calallen or Flower Bluff or the island. And I don't know whether you're basing the information on paper reports or whether it's eyeball seeing the stuff around, but I can assure you that you're nowhere close to being through. From the citizen standpoint and from the traveling public, there is still a lot of stuff out there. And so I would recommend that no more press releases go out saying what percentage we're finished. If you're wanting to give information saying the trucks are going to be in these neighborhoods Monday through Wednesday, and these neighborhoods Thursday through Sunday. Then people kind of know, well, maybe they're going to get to my neighborhood this week. So I think, you know, we have built up, I mean, when I first heard the reports that, you know, we're 90% through, and I got thinking, well, I'm not sure where the other 90% is, but this part over here makes up a whole lot more than what I think is 10% of the city. And, you know, whether it's Flower Bluff, whether it's the Country Club area, whether it's Cal Island, whether it's Hillcrest, I mean, there is trash everywhere. And it's hurricane debris trash. There's a lot of people throwing stuff away that's probably not related to the hurricane, but they're taking advantage of the truck coming out. So I think communication is real important. And I don't know how we can post this number, but I'm telling you, if you post this 826-2489 for people to report their trash hadn't been picked up, you're going to burn the phone lines up. And so you need to get ready with that. In the media that's here, that's the number, 826-2489. We take credit cards and we're open 24. No, but our goal is to get the city cleaned up, and you guys are doing a great job. I mean, it's overwhelming the amount of debris that was created. But at the same time, people have been extremely patient in the recovery and helpful people helping each other. I know people that have got pickup trucks and they've just got trailers. They've gone down their individual blocks and picked up their neighbor's stuff to haul it off just to help clean their neighborhood up a little bit. But I mean, the volume is just overwhelming. And I think people will understand, they'll be patient if they're not given bad information. And I just think, quite honestly, we've been given some bad information in these press releases. And I don't know who generates the material, but the information that's going out is very misleading, or at least it gives a broad interpretation that things are about finished and they're not.
Yes, sir.
So that would be my recommendation to you. But other than that, I think the troops are doing a great job picking stuff up. There's just a lot of stuff to pick up.
That there is.
And everybody wants to get done, but we've got to take a deep breath and develop our patience. We've been good so far, but it's kind of like when I go, and I don't know whether everybody else is, I can go on a 3-day trip or I can go on a 3-week trip. But when I get to the day or two before I'm supposed to come home, I just get antsy. I'm ready to get home once I'm within a day or two of getting there. And when they think they're a day or two of getting their trash picked up and then it doesn't happen, that really creates some frustration. So that would be my words of wisdom, whatever they're worth. Mr. Garza, one more time.
Yeah, I know I've spoken more than my share, but I noticed there's some crews that are also trimming trees, have contracted out for trimming trees in front of the right-of-way.
Yes,
and
sir.
Stuff. And it just seems to me like, I know we contract that out, but it just seems to me like after we've done an initial sweep, if we're going back and we're cutting the trees in front and then piling them in front, we're also extending the problem, because that seems like an activity, unless it's something that's in the right of way or in the way. It's something that it seems to me like we ought to defer until after we're at least done with picking up the first.
That's one of our lessons learned. When this contract is up for rebid, and we'll be back in February timeframe with a new 5-year contract for debris management, and the lessons learned, well, that'll be one of them, is that whenever the crew that goes down the street and cuts what's called the leaners or the hangers out of the tree canopies, that they're going to have to haul them off. And we just did not have that line item in our contract, and so therefore that's why they cut them and then they would leave them.
Yeah, it just seems that doing it right now at this time is just really not a good idea. Thank you.
Okay, I don't see any more lights, so appreciate the presentation. You have any other comments?
No, but thank you very much, and we'll be back in a couple of weeks with some more contract updates.
All right.
Thank you.
So Mayor, I would like to conclude by indicating that we really do appreciate the citizens' patience, and based on the calls that have come through my office, I know that the patients are running very thin right now. But we will also look at our communication strategy as we attempt to bring this to a close. Okay.
Right.
So Mayor, I have 2 more items.
Go ahead.
Okay. So
If you dare.
okay, I need to talk about Bond 2012. You're getting ready to see a video, and it's coming from Engineering Services, where they're going to provide a bird's eye view of Staples Street project, which was recently completed. It provides a unique perspective using drone videography, which is normally impossible to see from the ground. So let's watch the video. So in addition to premiering the engineering's new video, I would like to invite council, you and the public to an event on Friday, October the 27th at 9 a.m. It will be at the corner of Staples and Morgan Avenue. We will celebrate the completion of Bond 2012 Staples Street Improvement Project from I-37 to Morgan Avenue. And we're going to also kick off the Bond 2014 Staples Street Improvement Project, which will be from Morgan Avenue to Alameda Street. We hope you will be able to join us there. And Mayor, I have one more item, but I just need to go into the well for that item.
All right.
Thank you. Parks and Recreation, if you could please come forward. Okay, so Mayor and Council, we have some very exciting news for you. Parks and Recreation, if you could show. What Parks and Recreation is doing is showing a banner that you, Mayor and Council, can't see, or maybe you can see it on your, probably you can see it on TV.
We can see it on the TV. Or
So
the screen
this
here.
exciting news is the fact that the city's Parks and Recreation Department has joined the ranks of the elite by earning accreditation recently through the Commission for Accreditation of Parks and Recreation Agencies and the National Recreation and Park Association. The process involves a formal application, self-assessments, a site visit by trained visitors, and a hearing with the Commission to grant accreditation. As part of the process, the Parks and Recreation Department had to demonstrate compliance with 151 recognized standards and document all policies and procedures. Corpus Christi is one of 14 Texas cities to earn this distinction and is one of only 165 in the nation. I say to you, Parks and Recreation, congratulations, and Mayor and Council, this is our second department that has been accredited, and stay tuned, there's another one coming. But this is Parks and Recreation's Day, and we wanted to let you be aware that they are now accredited. Congratulations.
Thank you, Ms. Rose. It's a team effort in our community. So it's not just us as the staff. However, everyone up here and all of our employees took part in getting to the accreditation line. That's important because we want to make sure that our public service for you and the community is at the highest level that we can provide it. And again, it's a team effort. So we've got lots of partners in our community. We got advisory groups. We got adopt-a-park groups. We got a lot of folks in our community that helped us earn this as well too. So we thank you and for the recognition. We thank you for letting us serve you in this community as well too. Thank you.
We would like to take a picture.
For those of you that don't know, when Jay started this, he was 6'6" and had a head full of hair. And now that he's got this accreditation, it's a hard work, so congratulations to all of you.